Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. And as you can see, we're getting cheered on by whoever, the guy in the blue hair, Jack. That's who we're getting cheered on by. He's one of my favorite guys. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're here live, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook shows on Max Sports and Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page with our platforms, also on Twitter and Instagram. And we have a lot of things going on, Jack. So I'm asking people out there to follow, comment, share, and subscribe where possible. Go ahead and check out the website on macandjacksports.com called Max Insiders for information on weekly guest articles, team public relations updates, a list of shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, our great sponsors with links to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Mac. I'm doing well. Hope all's good with you.
Yeah, everything's going good, Jack. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things going on, Jack. And being gone just 2 days, we get together, we kind of get our show back up to date and do all the stuff behind the scenes. A lot of things have happened over these last 2 days, Jack. And we're going to get to that coming up right now in our sports update. And our sports update is brought to you by Fanatics. Go over to our website at macandjacksports.com. Click on your link. Go and get all your teams, your apparel from all your favorite teams from the NFL, MLB, National Boxing Association. Everything over there that you can think of, any major sport. They have all the clothes, the hats, all the things that you would want for you or your special someone, whoever you might like.
Special someone? What about me, myself? I could be my own special someone.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? We could buy stuff ourselves, so check it out.
I mean, that should be your favorite person anyway, right, Jack? So we're going to start off, Jack, in our sports updates with what I think is the biggest story of today. I mean, there's a lot of big ones, but I think this is the biggest one. So
tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice. The goalie jumps, and the players bump, and the fans all go insane. Someone roars, volley, score, a good old hockey game. Oh, good old hockey game! It's a good old hockey game. When players dash with skates and flash, and the home team trails behind.
Jack, it's opening of the hockey season today. I mean, I don't know about you. I kind of fell off the track of hockey over the years after my Hartford Whalers left the league and they ended up moving down to and becoming the Hurricanes. But guess what, Jack? Hockey's back with the first game today, the big rivalry, the Penguins and the Flyers, Jack. So what are you thinking about that, Jack? Are you excited as I am?
Let me tell you, Mac, in this crazy world, the season might get delayed a couple of days. We might get an announcement today.
Right.
So we don't know whether we're coming in the way, but it's great that hockey's opening their season. I think they have a 56-game season, a shortened season. But, if you haven't attended a hockey game, for those of you out there who just watch on TV, when the public is allowed to go again, go to a hockey game because you're not going to get a more exciting live sport than hockey with the action going up and down the ice. And it's exciting. And the Flyers and Penguins, a heck of a rivalry.
Yes, sir. I mean, Jack, I don't know. I mean, over the last couple of years, I've started to get back into hockey on a couple other shows that I was on. And with our guest tomorrow, we have Carter B coming on to cover the games and what happened. So that's to me the biggest story of today, even though we got some big ones, Jack, we're going to get to. The playoff picture update, Jack, is Saturday, the Rams versus the Packers at 4:30. The Ravens versus the Bills at 8:15. Sunday, we have the Browns and Chiefs on at 3:05. And 6:40, we have the Bucks in New Orleans. I want to remind everybody that my underdog pick of the Browns winning last week came.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And as you know, Jack, we weren't picking the little ones, the little spreads with 3 points or less. We were taking teams that were a touchdown or better. Yours almost came through too. So speaking of football, Jack, Philadelphia Eagles head coach Doug Peterson is let go, and I knew it was going to happen.
Now, we're going to talk with the Philly guy about it when he's on. You got the feeling that Doug Peterson finally said the heck with it, because when he met with the owner, Jeff Lurie, supposedly, he was confrontational. Doug Peterson said, moving forward, I have to have my staff. And he wanted to promote certain assistant coaches. And Jeff Lurie was thinking of getting rid of them. So they were kind of going at it. But something of note that was pretty important that it should be remembered, when Frank Reich, the year before they won the Super Bowl, the Eagles, he was the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. And Doug Peterson fought hard to keep Frank Reich on as the offensive coordinator, and he was rewarded with the Super Bowl win. And now Frank Reich is a top-of-the-line head coach with Indianapolis. So I think there was a bit of a power struggle, and Doug Peterson just rolled the dice and thought, the heck with it. If he fires me, fine. But let me tell you one last thing about this, Mac. These head coaches that get fired don't feel that sorry for them normally. Usually they're going to have at least 1 year left on their contract, if not more. And that's for big money, life-altering money.
Well, Jack, I got a theory on that's going to blow your mind later on the show when we talk to Pags, that are Philly sports guys. So Alabama beats Ohio State 52-24. They're the national champs again. Kind of good, but kind of boring, Jack. I mean, we got the same teams in there. This pretty much the same outcome. I mean, Clemson won last year, or did they win last year, Jack? I know they won the last few years.
Yeah, but Alabama is a breeding ground for the NFL.
Very true.
Look at all the players, especially on this year's team. I mean, they are stacked.
Yes.
And you're going to have a number of Alabama players going in the first round. Even their quarterback, Mac Jones, who we haven't talked that much about, he's going to go in the first round to some team. And he might go a little lower in the draft. When I say lower, conceivably a top 15 selection. And it's very intriguing, the amount of players. I mean, Alabama's like turning out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Alabama under Nick Saban. Nick didn't make it didn't do too well in the pros, but in college, he's number one, Jack. There's no doubt about it.
7 national championships.
Yeah.
The great Bear Bryant, I believe, had 6. And you'd have a very healthy debate who is the greatest coach in Alabama history. To even think that you would question someone could be greater than the legendary Bear Bryant, it would have been incomprehensible years ago.
I definitely agree with that. Lindor is finally introduced to the Mets New York media. He doesn't commit to signing an extension after this year, Jack. He kind of said, I'm a man that's living for today. I'm happy with, being with the Mets. I'm happy with being with the team. And when the questions came up, well, how about next year when your contract is up with, the Mets traded for with Cleveland? How about when that's up? What are your plans? Are you ready to sign an extension? And he wouldn't commit, Jack. So I don't know. I mean, listen, great for him this year. I would imagine they're going to have to negotiate. I would imagine Lindor will try free agency like his agent will want him to, and like any good young ball player would. So he doesn't commit, Jack.
Let me tell you something. These media headlines get to be ridiculous. The media headlines said Lindor open to signing an extension. What's he going to say? I'm definitely not going to sign one, and I'm going to play it out to be a free agent. But this market this year with the free agents is moving very slowly.
Yeah.
Very, very slowly. So Lindor could play out his option. There are risks involved. He's a 4-time Golden Glove winner, wonderful fielder, but he's a lifetime 285 hitter. What happens if Lindor hits 252 next year, which is possible, and
Sure.
his power output, continues to dip a little bit, and he hits maybe 18 homers, hits 252, and has a very good glove in the field? What type of money does he think he's going to command? If he could strike a deal now, do it. But these guys kind of push it a little too far sometimes. But you have to look as a player. And this is what I would tell a player if I was an agent. I always had an ambition to kind of be an agent. If you already have enough money to live comfortably the rest of your life, then you could roll the dice and take a chance. Otherwise, if they're going to offer you a very good deal, don't battle just for a little bit more and risk losing the whole pot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Jack. Yes, Jack. We also are going to be updating basketball more frequently as, of course, the NFL winds down to the Super Bowl. And just checking the NBA standings right now, Jack. The Celtics lead the East Conference at 7-3. The 76ers right now are 8-4, half a game behind them. The Bucks are at 7-4. The Knicks and Nets are tied in ninth. Of course, the Nets won last night, so that has changed a little bit. And Cleveland is at 5-6. The Celtics beat the Wizards 116-107. They play the Magic today. The 76ers played the Heat. They won 137-134 in overtime with Embiid with 45 points.
Monster game, Joel Embiid yesterday. Yeah. Monster game.
And let's see what else we got. We've got the Knicks lost to the Hornets Monday and play the Nets today. So let's see if we can get some kind of rivalry going here. The Nets played, as I said, Denver last night. They won 122-116. Durant with 36.
Let me tell you about the game yesterday. I was watching the net game. And Kevin Durant, I loved his attitude. I loved his body language. Kyrie Irving's not there. And that's an issue in itself. But what Kevin Durant came to the Nets because of Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving's now leaving Kevin Durant out there all alone on the island, basically. He doesn't have his partner with him. But Kevin Durant showed tremendous leadership skills. And I was watching him not only perform magnificently on an individual basis, but encouraging his teammates, trying to bring out the best in his teammates. And he was playing with such enthusiasm leading that net comeback yesterday against Denver. So I just like the place that Kevin Durant is in right now.
Yeah. And to remind everybody, coming up soon, we'll have the Philly Sports Guy and also wrestling with Stu. So,
hey, let me tell you, Mac, that Harlem Globetrotters song, I once went to see the Harlem Globetrotters play at the Nassau Coliseum. And I know the Globetrotter routine is supposed to be staged, but one of them was clowning around at midcourt, asking the other player to guard him. He just flipped the ball from half court in the air and he swished it. And I'm thinking, wait, there had to be strings on the ball to pull it to go in, because I'm figuring, how did he do that?
I know.
I don't care whether it's staged or not. It was like, wow, off the charts.
I know. Talk about Steve Curry. They should have saw some of the shots the Harlem Globetrotters actually made.
Skiing coming up, Mac. I'm trying to guess the sport. Oh, cool. Okay. Wall of Fame.
Yes, sir, Jack.
Mac.
So, Jack, as you know, and for those of you that are tuning in for this first time or watch us regularly, we have our Wall of Fame inductee every Wednesday. If you go to macandjacksports.com website, you'll see the Wall of Fame, where we induct the greatest players in the different sports of all time. And today, Jack, we're going to put in the greatest center fielder in history of baseball. Career batting average of 302, 660 home runs, 3,230, 83 hits.
Mac, I have to adjust that a little bit. It might be accurate. You put that, it's put down the greatest center field in history of baseball. Maybe he was. Maybe he was. But I think the safer bet, let's put down one of the greatest, because you got Joe DiMaggio.
Yes, you do.
New York Yankees. So
yes, you do. But you know, Jack, when you think of center fielders, and why I say the greatest, is because home runs, power, four-tool player, can steal bases like anybody else. 12
How about
times.
Mickey Mantle, Mac? Is
Yeah.
that how you speak?
No,
Oh,
I'm talking about Willie Mays, 24-time All-Star.
He was a 5-tool player.
Yes, true, very true. I wasn't counting when he was working on cars. And 12-time Golden Gloves, Jack. 4-time stolen base leader. This man did it all. And who can forget that video of him making that one catch in center field, going straight back, almost at the wall, makes a catch, turns around, throws it in. So for that purpose, Jack, I have said that, and this is only my opinion maybe, but I think it's the opinion of a lot of people, Willie Mays is the greatest.
When I was a kid, I sometimes tried to imitate Willie Mays. He had a thing called a basket catch.
Yes.
You know, there'd be a fly ball. Outfielders will always get under the fly ball. That's what they're trained to do. Willie Mays would let the ball come in before him, hold the glove down, and kind of put it in the basket, and he never dropped it.
Yes.
Never dropped it. And some other outfielders tried to imitate it, and once in a while they would drop the ball. But Willie Mays defensively was unbelievable. And as a base runner, Mac, he was so good. He would sometimes slow up a little because he'd want the team to throw the ball to the base he was going to, because it would allow the runner behind him to take the extra base. That's how Willie Mays would think things out. I mean, he was, just an incredible player, his charisma. And when the Giants moved to San Francisco after the 1957 season, it broke Willie Mays' heart.
Yes.
Absolutely broke his heart. So when he came back to the Mets at the end of his career, even though he was at the end of the line, it was fitting in a certain sense that he should finish up his career in the city that he loved.
Definitely. And we have a lot of comments coming in, Jack. The last one from our friend over at TGI Sports Talk, Keith Engel, thinking that Willie was great with a car engine, and he thought that was kind of funny. So, once in a while I have my moments, Jack. I can make it funny every now and then. So, Jack, let's get back to the basketball scene a little bit, and especially with the Nets. Listen, I thought, and so did you in the beginning of the year. Listen, Kevin Durant to the Nets is an excellent acquisition. Kyrie Irving, I didn't like it. He was big trouble in Boston. He had a little problems playing with other people. He kind of, I don't want to say slapped, the great LeBron James, but he kind of ignored him and kind of put him in a position. And LeBron took the high road and said that, it was great playing with Kyrie. But now Kyrie from last year wanting to start his own league because of what happened socially. Now he's just missing games, Jack. He just doesn't feel like going. And a video has come out with him at a party, not wearing a mask, some kind of family party. He's missed 4 games so far. And, there are some people, me and Jack were talking before the show, and we really don't talk a lot about the topics or what we're talking about, because I like Jack to be raw because he's really good at it. And if it was staged, he wouldn't be as good. But we talked about this a little bit. Listen, there are some people that can handle fame, can handle a lot of money at once, and there's some that can't. And in my opinion, Kyrie Irving has a huge problem handling his fame and all his money right now.
With Kyrie Irving, I'm concerned because I think that they're red flags. It started with Cleveland. No top-of-the-line player in his right mind wouldn't want to play with LeBron James because they all want to win. And you're with LeBron James, at the very least, you're in the mix for an NBA title. Then he goes to the Celtics, and he makes them an instant contender for the NBA championship. Yet he's there 1 year. He was a bit distant. The organization just couldn't establish any type of bond with him. Then he comes to the Nets, and make no mistake about it, he plotted coming to the Nets with Kevin Durant.
Sure.
Who's apparently a good buddy of his, because soon after they became free agents, they became Brooklyn Nets. And Kyrie Irving obviously had tremendous influence on Durant, because if Kyrie Irving wasn't coming to the Nets, Kevin Durant wouldn't be here in Brooklyn. So now they're with the Nets, and he has all he needs. But before that, during the off season, he's making a bunch of noise, telling the NBA players not to play the season, and just so many issues, one after the other. Then he says at the beginning of training camp, all of us are coaching the team. We don't need a particular head. The Philly guy's a great guy. Pags will wait a moment because Pags understands.
Definitely.
I just want to say this with the Kyrie Irving situation, missing these games. I'm a bit concerned beyond what's on the surface. This seems like a troubled young man.
Well, Jack, I want to close this off in this way. He got a very good coach fired. All right, the Brooklyn Nets, even though they had half their team out,
Kenny Atkinson,
had a team in the playoffs and fought. And before the COVID situation, they were favorite to go a long way in the playoffs. So they already had a good young team. Adding Durant, I thought was an excellent idea. Adding Kyrie Irving, I knew was not. And I just believe
you couldn't have Durant without Irving.
I understand. But you know something? With his actions right now, suspend the guy for the year, don't pay him, and see you later. And that's what I would do. And see you later to Kyrie. And if Durant has a problem with that, he has a problem with that. So anyway, we got coming up next, guys. One of the most popular guests that is on different platforms and social media. He has a great accounts, Facebook. He has a great TikTok thing that's sensational. He comes on there and does his thing there. But there's a lot of Philly sports. I know he's itching to get to talk about him because I am too.
Let's negotiate a deal trading Kyrie Irving. What we could get from the Sixers.
Yeah. Maybe they can get Embiid right after that great game he played yesterday. So let's bring up the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags. How you doing, Pags?
I'm doing great, guys. Good morning.
What are you going to give us for Kyrie Irving?
Maybe a bag of bolts, and we'll send him out to Denver.
There you go. Hey, Pags, we opened it up with the opening day of hockey. I see you're in full gear over there. You got the Flyers versus the Penguins. Listen, this is a good rivalry. The Flyers right now, from what I saw on all broadcasts, and of course you can take it for its worth, is second favorite to win the conference behind the Bruins. So I mean, you got some good teams out there right now. You got Philly, you got the Bruins, the Islanders are up and coming. So I mean, I'm looking for a 3-team race between the three of you in that conference anyway. And Pittsburgh, we'll see what happens with Pittsburgh, but it's a great rivalry. So what are your thoughts on today with the Flyers and Penguins?
Well, I love the fact that the NHL chose this game to open up the season. I feel like, and all of the different rivalries that are across the NHL, and there are a number of great ones that throughout the years have been fantastic. This has been one of the most contested and heated ones that creates a lot of fanfare around it. So I'm really excited that the NHL chose this to open up their season. This is going to be, I tell you, with the divisions the way that they're set, it's going to be a very interesting race, especially in our division, where we have, I mean, there's just a number of great teams. I mean, unfortunately, there's a big drop off between the great teams and the really poor teams. So, like, you have, I mean, Pittsburgh, I mean, although we're playing them today, and I'm not a real big fan of the Pens, I mean, they're still a perennial good team. Boston, I think, has gotten a little older, and I just don't trust their goalie as much anymore after what he pulled last year. Then you have like the Islanders, who are a young up and coming team. And then, of course, the Flyers that are also young. New Jersey's also got a young squad that I think that are a good goaltender away. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting, especially by the way that they have this schedule figured out. Like, we're going to be playing these teams all like 16 times each, which is you're going to talk about when the playoffs come, it's going to be, very heated, very contested. And that's not something that we're used to seeing. I expect to see a lot more fights this year, just because you're seeing this team over and over and over again, and you're going to start to see tendencies. People are going to start to get under your skin. I mean, Travis Konechny is known for being somebody who is always just chirping and getting into the ears of the opposite players. So I expect that there's going to be a lot more chippiness, a lot more banging against the boards, and a lot more, physicality to these games than there has been in previous years.
You mentioned the rivalries, with the Penguins and the Flyers. I grew up with the Ranger Flyer rivalry. I don't know from a Philadelphia perspective whether the Penguins and Flyers exceeded that as a rivalry. But I would think, based on what happened last year, a new rivalry has emerged. I mean, it's an old rivalry as well, the Islanders and the Flyers. I think that's the team now the Flyers will have it in for more than anyone else, because that's the team that stopped them, from contending for the cup, getting
And
to
the Islanders
finals.
have had our number for a
Yeah.
number of years. I mean, they have been able to really beat us consistently.
Yeah.
I think it was until during that playoff run where we'd won a couple of games that we had not beaten them at all. And their coach is an amazing coach. I mean, Trotter is just, he's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And those are good coaching, really, especially in the sport of hockey, is going to take you somewhere. Good coaching and good goaltending is going to outweigh. And then they have just a good amount of speed, and you could tell in the bubble. Plus, they enjoyed playing with each other. And those are the types of things that are really important to gel with the team, especially a young team, to make them more up and coming. Now, this is a new season, and I understand that they've had our number, but things, that's all in the past. And we have a couple of young guys as well that are going to be really interesting to see coming up with like, I want to see if Nolan Patrick can come back from missing an entire year. Morgan Frost, Farabee. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this season.
I agree with that 100%. I thought during, this was in the bubble. This wasn't with home crowds where you guys have a huge advantage during the regular season. I don't know whether, what's going to happen this year, whether they're going to allow fans in. You got to, we got the shots out there right now. Supposedly that's going to help out. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but the Islanders just look faster than the Flyers last year. And I don't know if it's because of home field. I don't know what it is. They came out forechecking you right off the rip. They were very physical. Maybe it surprised you guys. I don't know. But I think that's going to be a great rivalry for a couple of years because, as you say, both teams are pretty young, Jim.
I agree. And it's interesting because of the series before where we played against Montreal, which was also, they played a trap, which is very defensive style. And the Islanders played a very similar defensive style, but they were faster at it. And the trap seems to get the Flyers kind of tied up. And it's actually been something that has been a problem with Alain Vigneault's a style of play that the trap kind of beats that. So he's got to be able to adjust against those types of teams. And it was, against Montreal, who was very young. They, like I said, they just didn't have all of the talent in place, and neither did they have the goaltending. Well, I mean, they had a great goaltender, but it's like I said, they just didn't have the defensive spots in place where the Islanders did. And that was the biggest difference in the bubble last year. However, like I said, when you're in a bubble and you're dealing with each other on a daily basis, and they were living all in the same hotel and the camaraderie and everything, that really starts to play a part where they had their veterans were not much older than their youth, than their rookies, where the Flyers have a little bit of a change, a disparity between Voracek and Giroux in comparison to the younger guys. So there's a little bit of a difference in those types of age brackets. And I think that kind of played a little bit of a part in the bubble.
Well, let me ask you something about Carter Hart, the Flyer goalie. I mean, people are ready to put him in the Hall of Fame. They're ready to anoint him as the best goalkeeper in hockey. In about a year from now that he's on the way to that. But the games I've been watching, he seemed a little erratic. He looked sensational one game and then so-so the next game. There hasn't really been that consistency you'd want to see from a great goaltender. I understand the potential's there for greatness, but he seemed a little bit erratic at times.
So you're talking about like one in every 7 or 8 games where he would have a difficult game.
He'd be giving up 3-4 goals a game. It would seem for a stretch in the playoffs, if I remember correctly. He wasn't a shutdown goaltender.
So I disagree. I didn't see that. I know that he had a couple of tough games, but it wasn't that. Like where he was giving up 2 and 3, and just in the playoffs, it's a little bit of a different. Everything's faster, and the defense. I mean, in the playoffs last year, Niskanen was such a liability giving up the puck. They gave up the puck so often in their zone. And I don't care if you are, Tretiak, with the best goaltender that ever lived. If you're going to get those giveaways in your zone, you're going to give up goals. And I feel like that had a lot more to do with it than Carter Hart not performing great. I feel now I'm not ready to put him in the Hall of Fame yet. I'm not even ready to announce him the best goaltender in the league, because that comes with time and you being able to prove it over a length of time. Let's see how he does this season. However, we're going to go as far as he's ready to take us. Definitely. And him being very young is going to be, is also like the stamina. And plus he's got Elliott behind him who, the Moose has been around for so long. He's a fantastic mentor in terms of being able to coach him up moving forward, and then be able to come in every once in a while, because there's stretches in the season where the Flyers are playing 8 games in like 13 days. And it's going to be important to have 2 goaltenders that can really complement each other.
I didn't realize the schedule was going to be that difficult. 8 games in 13 days. That's kind of rough.
Yeah, that's one stretch that I happened to notice, but because there's a lot of 7 games in 14 days, and that because they're trying to squeeze as many games in before. I mean, I think the season ends on May 10th or so.
I agree, Jamie. So everything you said there, I like Hart. I think he's going to be good. So let's turn to football for a moment. And it keeps getting, I don't say crazier because I had feelings that this was going to happen, but I want to get your thoughts first. The defensive coordinator is gone. Head coach Doug Peterson, a guy that just won a Super Bowl, coached the Eagles to a Super Bowl. According to he had right there, he had a good staff, but still, he's been let go. What are your thoughts before I give you my conspiracy theory? Go ahead.
So I am not 100% sold on why they got rid of him. I feel that there was a little bit of a power struggle that happened in the process of this, that he wanted to start to have more say, and that wasn't the context on how he was hired. I mean, they hired the defensive coordinator first before they brought him in, and then because of that set a precedent, and ultimately I feel like that Doug went into that meeting saying, hey, it's not necessarily saying, hey, it's Carson or me, but ultimately there was a little bit of that. And he's like, hey, I want to choose my staff, or I want to promote from within. At least that's the rumblings that I'm hearing right now, that he wanted to promote the guys who had lesser roles to higher roles. And Jeffrey wasn't really interested in hearing stuff like that. However, when Jeffrey came out and talked about it in his press conference, he seemed very out of touch with the fan base, and like he saw what was going on. And I understand that he's got this relationship with Howie Roseman as the general manager that goes beyond football. That being said, I feel like that they have, because of all this, they really have put Howie on the hot seat, and because the fan base isn't going to take another year of a poor draft and a poor product being put out on the field. And it doesn't matter that we're 70 million over the cap or any of those other issues. This has got to be a quick turnaround, or at least a show of heart and pride in this franchise, or this fan base is going to start to turn.
Well, Howie Roseman has drafted very poorly. It seems over the years. Is this true or not? Because this is what we heard. The year before the Eagles won the Super Bowl, Jeffrey Lurie was looking to get rid of Frank Reich, and it was Doug Peterson who fought for Frank Reich, and then they were rewarded with that Super Bowl victory. And of course, Frank Reich is an excellent head coach now with Indianapolis.
So I love it when players or fans, and then even opposing fans, love to say, hey, Frank Reich is the one that won that Super Bowl instead of Doug Peterson. And the truth of the matter is that since he's went to Indianapolis, I don't remember seeing him win a playoff game.
They've improved Indianapolis under him.
He's improved in the regular season, but when it's come to playoffs, he's been one and done.
But he was Doug Peterson's guy with the Eagles, Frank Reich, supposedly.
He was. And there was a whole culture that was done between Frank Reich, Nick Foles, so, I mean, and like I said, I think I mentioned this before, that there was a very religious undertone to that entire team. And that when, it doesn't matter what the cause is. When you have everybody pulling in one direction, you can move mountains. And those were some of the things that happened with the 2017-2018 Eagles to win that Super Bowl, because they really did have everything in place to do those types of things. Now you start to break up little pieces of that. Next thing you know, Nick Foles is gone, in the following year, Frank Reich takes a job because the Colts job opens up. Those are so now you start taking little pieces away, and now it's not that same feel anymore. And I feel like now that there's enough pieces taken away, that there's, this is a new team now. Everything that's going to happen here on forward is not going to have any type of reflection in the mirror from the, Super Bowl 52 team.
Let me throw my conspiracy theory on you, and I think there's some basis to this. We all talked about at length, and so has all national media, about what happened in the last game. I have a feeling that the NFL, because it was on national TV, because such a big deal was made out of it by the media, by former players, by everybody, that the NFL came to the ownership of the Eagles and said, listen, man, you made us look bad. You made the whole NFL look bad. You have shown that that some teams are tanking on Broad Street, and you got to do something here. I think the NFL is so big, and so, as any business, as anyone that runs a business, maybe the owners even talked to the head of the NFL, the commissioner, about this and said, hey, listen, we do rest our players for playoffs. We do certain things. But this was so obvious and had got such a reaction that you go and you talk to the owner of the Eagles. What do you think?
Anything is possible. I mean, when you're talking about things like that, that's all behind closed doors. Like I said, the Eagles are very good at saying, hey, we're going to do something very specific, and then going against that a couple days later. So I kind of expect that there may have been a little bit of that. The NFL gets egg on their face all the time. So, and they're able to weather those storms fairly simple. So to be able to just say, okay, this is, you tanked in the, primetime game and blah, blah, blah. Truth of the matter is that that's their own fault for flexing that game. Now, could they have gone and done that? Absolutely. And it wouldn't surprise surprise me, but to make a franchise have to do so, take a reaction to a coach because of that, that's really overstepping a boundary. That starts to say, okay, well, now we're not going to let you operate the way you want to. We're going to start to get involved, and that sets us very slippery precedent, across the board there. I don't know that they may have put bugs in his ear, and those bugs may have started to chirp a little louder, being right next to him. But I don't know that they had a say in Doug's firing.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this a number of times leading up to the draft, a lot of times, but I'm sure the whispers have started in Philly with the number 6 pick. Who are they eyeing? Are they going to go by position? Are they going to trade down? Or what's the talk?
So as of right now, there is no talk about the draft. It is still hot on coach. Okay, that this has all happened. There's one sports radio station that is going to have a powwow to almost like an intervention. That they feel that the Eagles are so out of touch with their fan base that they have to come in and they're asking for fans to just make statements. They're not having a conversation. They're going to be coming on, doing 2-minute soliloquies, statements, and then saying, okay, now it's up to you. And I think that that's a little far-fetched.
Okay, Pax, let's switch to the coaching search. The talk is Todd Bowles is going to have an interview soon. And now he's had 3 interviews, if you count the Eagles, the one that he's going to have with the Lions and the Falcons. What coach with options in their right mind would want to come to Philadelphia, be on the hot seat with the quarterback situation, with a dominant GM, with an owner who has to have things exactly a certain way? I mean, what coach that's in demand would want that job?
Great question.
None. That's so, and that, to be honest, I've thought about this, and so I've started to think really outside the box here a little bit. My expectation is that I think that you're going to start to see. First off, I don't believe so the enemy has come up a little bit, and obviously the guy you just mentioned there as well has come up.
Bowles,
yeah, thank you. I also have heard some thoughts about the offensive coordinator for Baltimore as a possible candidate for that. My thought is that you're going to see a special teams coach that is going to wind up taking this job, only because it's a jump of a couple of levels. And I do believe that anybody who is a hot commodity is going to want more say. And I don't think that the Eagles are willing to give up that say. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they chose the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator before they chose the head coach again, because they want to have the idea of
bad moves, Spags.
Two separate, where you have 2 head coaches kind of operating. I don't think it's a good idea either. I don't like that idea.
Terrible move. If they do that, I would throw my hat in right off the rip. Listen, you've got to get a good head coach. Let him set his staff. Tell the GM to back off a little bit, maybe work with him. That's how you turn clubs around. You don't turn clubs around by hiring people before he gets there. And you got to have them in place before the draft. You got to have them in place before the draft. And he's got to be able to readily attend to the Wentz problem. The Wentz wants out. So listen, this is going to be a very important hire for the Eagles, because Wentz is going to have to be happy with it. You got a huge contract there. Hurts is going to have to be happy with it, because I think he feels that he has a right to compete with Wentz. And then you got all the players and the fans. This is a huge decision for Philadelphia, the Eagles, how they go forward next year. And if they do that, Pags, if I was you, I would go out there and protest in full uniform every day until they change their mind. So, listen, they got to run it the way it's supposed to be run, or I feel bad for you guys again. I really do.
Well, and I kind of feel the exact same way. I mean, I look at the coach of the Steelers, and I don't think that the head coach of the Steelers, I don't feel that he is a great head coach, but I feel like he's a great delegator and he has
Mike
good football
Tomlin,
people.
we
Mike
have a
Tomlin,
difference
I,
of
I don't, I
opinion.
don't, I don't, in terms of being a head coach like I think he's a player's coach. I feel like let me rephrase this. I feel that he is a great coach because of the people he has around him, and he's very good at delegation and keeping ownership of your job in place, and that's what makes a really strong head coach. I feel like that Doug had too many things going on, playing with the play calling and things like that. He was not Andy Reid. And Andy Reid is a special breed because he you know, from birth, he ate, drank, slept, football. And and now you see he's, on the verge of possibly winning his second Super Bowl if they can get past Buffalo.
You know
Uh,
what? You know what's funny about this? Sometimes you don't know what you have. Hypothetically, if Andy Reid was a free agent, the Eagles would gobble him up in a second to be their head coach right now. That's
with
the weird thing.
Without a
Yeah,
doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it's funny as I was thinking, just if I'm going to spitball it and do like a fantasy, would I be interested in trading the sixth pick for Bill Belichick?
Wow. Uh, you want to know something? I would do that. I would
Th-
do
That
that.
that would be like I said, it's a
Absolutely.
fantasy, but it's
that's
Yeah.
right.
definitely something
That's
that's a
right.
thought process.
So let's move over to basketball and let's look at the 76ers. They won
And
last.
I wanted to ask him a couple of baseball things, Mac, but go ahead.
Well, let's so anyway, let's move to there. Embiid has a huge game. It looks like they know how to use him finally over there under Doctor. I mean, you had that one game where you only had a 7-player squad, and that was
That's
ridiculous. And listen, I think that you guys are heading in the right direction, especially with that big win last night in overtime. What are your thoughts right now? I mean, you guys are up there where you're supposed to be competing for the division title. I think you guys are going to have a real good team this year.
I agree. I think that they played kind of gutsy. I mean, there was a number of times. I know that the Heat, the point spread went from like 3 to 10 because the Heat rested a whole bunch of players that
No
they
Jimmy
should.
Butler.
Yeah, and that was a big swing. But even still, like even going into the last 3 minutes of the game, the Sixers were down, and they came back to tie it up and then ultimately win it. So it was a little bit of a gutsy performance. But I think the bigger story, other than the Sixers, is how the NBA is treating the Sixers. I mean, the Celtics have had 2 or 3 games because of COVID protocol, and here it is: the Sixers are dressing 7 guys, and they had to dress. You have to have 8 on the bench. They had to dress Green, even though they knew he wasn't going to play, just so that they could get out there and play. And it was so ridiculous to have 3 guys with over 40 minutes of game time on a 48-minute game is absurd. And to see that they're canceling games, but yet they decide that the Sixers must play is you want to talk about conspiracy theories? This is still a trust the process punishment. But the Sixers are playing through it, and I know that Doc was not happy about it. That he called the league office a couple of times, saying, "Hey, this is how injuries are going to occur. That you're going to have 7 guys out there. Like all 7 guys played. Like the average, obviously, it was like 3 guys were over 40 minutes. Everybody played at least 30. It was absurd to kind of see that type of thing happen. And the NBA is like, really? This is the type of product you want to put out there? I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. That being said, I feel like the Sixers, because they're playing these games now and not being canceled, they're going to wind up having a break towards the end of the season, and they're going to be a lot more rested going into the playoffs. So as long as they can keep doing what they're doing and winning the games that they're supposed to win, and then battling in the games that they go up against teams that are going to be competing with them, like the Celtics, the Heat, the Bucks. That's going to be. They're going to be. I think they're going to come out second in the East, and they're going to represent the East.
I know you can't play Dwight Howard with Embiid and Simmons style-wise. It just doesn't quite work. But when you prorate Dwight Howard's numbers as a part-time player, that's all-star caliber stuff if you make him full-time, numbers-wise. I don't know would he maintain it. over the course of a whole game. But what he does for 10, 12 minutes is, very impressive.
Yeah, and I think I think I mentioned this last week. It just exudes leadership across the entire team. I've been very impressed with how he has dealt with the minutes and dealt with just the team in general, where he's always had the moniker of being a cancer in the locker room. I have not heard or felt anything of the such with the Sixers, and I feel like that it's only been a fantastic asset, and because he's doing the minutes that he's going to have a much better ability to re-sign next year for a little bit more money, either with the Sixers or somewhere else.
Dwight Howard and the number 1 pick, and we'll give you Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I felt good when Doc was chose to be your coach, and there's 2 reasons. One, of course, he's got championship experience, but 2, he seems like the player's coach. That, of course, he knows the game, but I think his communication with the young team you have there working together, I think it's going to work out for you guys. I don't know if you're going to championship this year, but you guys are going to be up there competing for the next few years, Jamie. So I think that's great news that you have him, and I think you guys are going to be pretty successful under this guy.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that they take a pretty large step coming on. It's one thing to do it in the regular season. It's another thing that to be ready for the postseason. And I expect that they're going to get out of the first round this year. And my expectation is that they're going to represent the East. They may not win it all this year, but I think they're going to represent the East just because I feel that they have a much better squad than the Celtics and the Bucks, and those are the 2 teams that are really going to be competing.
Don't sleep on the Nets, my friend. Don't sleep on the Nets.
Well, they got to figure out Kyrie, don't they?
Yeah, they got to figure out a few things. So great guest appearance here today. You did a great job with Philly sports, Pags. You even went longer than normal because we had.
I just want to ask him one thing very quickly before I go. What's going on the free agent front? Realmuto, Gregorius. I mean, there's been no movement anywhere with the big names, and what the heck? Something's got to break soon. We're getting, we're mid-January.
The expectation is that they are going to re-sign with the Phillies.
Now
that's what I read something today. I mean, so I like the fact that Dombrowski has been doing a number of things to shore up the bullpen, and I feel like that these guys want to win. They want to get into the playoffs. And the fact that they didn't get into the playoffs actually played a little bit of a part on where they feel like they want to go. Now, I thought that Realmuto was really, at least his camp was talking about numbers way out of line with what he's going to really wind up with. And Gregorius is a little bit of the same thing. When you're with the Yankees and you're a perennial playoff team, to go to a team that's not in the playoffs starts to weigh on you a little bit. And he wanted to see kind of how the Phillies were going to react to that. And then you hear, okay, well, we're going to fire the GM, but he's not going to leave. And then the president's not going to stay the same. And then, it's like, oh, well, hold on. Then now everybody wants to leave. Well, they brought in Dombrowski, and now the narrative has changed, that they may want to stay. And I kind of expect that they're going to come to a conclusion that I think that Realmuto is going to be able to get some money for a much shorter term. I think Gregorius is going to also get some money for a very short term. And they're going to try to put it together again in 2021, kind of what they did in 2020, but with a better bullpen, because that's really what they're going for. I mean, as of right now, they made the trade for Alvarado as long as he could stay healthy, and Coonrod, and now there's rumblings that they're going after. I think his name is Colomé from the White Sox. Now all of a sudden those 3 arms are ages above what we had last year, which was the worst bullpen in Major League Baseball, maybe in Major League Baseball history. It was just so bad with losing those games. I mean, I don't know how many games the bullpen lost us last year, where if they just won 2 of them, we'd have been in the playoffs. So I fully expect that's a big difference in comparison to last year. I think that I think they're going to stay.
Yeah. Okay, Pags, again, great job as you always do every Wednesday for us. We'll see you next week. Pags is also on a Northeast Streaming Sports network with us. He does a great job over there at Bird's Nest. He has a couple more shows coming up soon. So, Pags, have a great day today. Watch your Flyers do their thing and keep on watching the 76ers, and we'll find out what happens with the Eagles and their coach. Have a great day, Pags. Again, thanks for coming in. It's
Take
always
care, Pags.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a great week.
Thank you, my friend. So there we go. The great Philly sports guy, Jamie Paz, giving us a great Phillies update. Jack, we got a wrestling show podcaster coming up right after the break. So,
We
folks,
do it all on this show.
if you're tuning in to watch him, they'll be right up in a minute. Thanks again to Pags, and we'll have Stu's wrestling podcast coming up right after the commercials. So, guys, stick with us, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org. We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Anna. Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Or get killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Jack. We're all over the darn place. So, Jack, we had a great guest just a minute ago, the Philly sports guy who brought us all the Phillies information. And Jack, we have a special guest backstage right now that we're going to bring on. His name is Stewie Palmer. He runs Stewie's Wrestling Podcast, and he's from the United Kingdom, Jack. We're bringing him all the way over from the United Kingdom to introduce him to our show and to Northeast Streaming Sports. He seems like a fun guy. We've watched some of his clips. We saw some of his podcasts he's done in the past. He even had a relative of the British Bulldog. I remember him on one of his things. So let's bring Stu up and see what's going on. How you doing today, Stu?
Good morning. Good morning. How are we? How's things?
Everything's going great.
Good morning, Stu. Do you read boxing news in the UK?
I don't personally. I read it. I wouldn't necessarily do boxing because there's many guys doing it who do a good job.
Right, because I write for that UK publication, Boxing News.
Oh, right, okay. I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware of boxing news. Absolutely, yes, I am.
There you go. So yeah, Jack is a legendary writer. Stewie, really, he's a former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. I was lucky to find him as a guest, and he became my co-host. So, Stewie, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about you and your show first. What got you, into wrestling, Stu, over there?
I've watched pro wrestling since 1990. But the thing was, where you guys had all the territories over there, they covered everything. All we got, to the best of my knowledge, was WWF, obviously now WWE, well, that's been since 2002. We got WCW as well. We obviously had World of Sport, which I know the Americans speak fondly about World of Sport, our British style. So yeah, that's how it began for me as a fan. And many trips to WrestleMania over to the States. So I've been in attendance for the big shows. And yeah, I just love it. I've loved it ever since the age of 4 years old. So what better way for me to express myself with a wrestling podcast?
And your show, your podcast, when did that start up, Stu?
2019. So yeah, 2 years to the month when we began. It was January 2019 when I started doing the first lot of shows.
That's great. I started watching wrestling very young too, Stu. My grandfather was a huge wrestling fan. They had wrestlers back then, of George the Animal Steele, Chief Straight, Jay Strongbow. I loved when the Animal decided to stop when he was winning and start eating the turnbuckles, which was very, very entertaining. So when you started watching wrestling, who was the biggest stars out there, Stu?
Obviously, it was your Hogan's, Ultimate Warrior. I was never the biggest Hogan fan. I respected Hogan as a kid, but Ultimate Warrior for me. But my favorite, and still my favorite to this day, Bret the Hitman Hart, by a landslide. The greatest technical wrestler, in my opinion, to ever grace the sport. And I've been a fan of Bret. Got to meet Bret actually at WrestleCon in New Jersey in 2013.
Does he really hate Shawn Michaels' guts?
They buried the hatchet in 2010, didn't they? But it was very public, obviously, on television. But I think at the time there was a lot of heat there. A lot of people said it was a work within the business, but I truly believe they hated each other at that point.
And what are Bret Hart's feelings towards Vince McMahon? I mean, there was a pure hatred at one time. Is it still there? Did he bury the hatchet a little?
I think the thing that changed it, obviously there was a bit of heat and what have you, but I'm trying to think back. Bret did a documentary, and it was with WWE. They approached him in 2005, and I think that broke the ice. But then you didn't see him on TV, on Raw and such, until years later. But that broke the ice when they said, look, we want to do the DVD, Your Career Retrospective. And him and Vince, he said Vince was like a father figure to him when he was in the WWE. I mean, he had 13, 14 years in the WWE.
Well, with Owen Hart tragically getting killed during a WWF at the time stunt, I mean, the family settled for reported $18 million. But Bret Hart, when he had lost the title, not at WrestleMania, in the SummerSlam or whatever, when he lost that match to Shawn Michaels, when Vince McMahon came to the ring because it became apparent that Bret Hart wasn't going to voluntarily give up his title, So Vince McMahon cut the match short, and I could see what was going on, what Vince McMahon was doing. And then in the dressing room backstage, Bret Hart just nailed Vince McMahon, just nailed him.
He drilled him.
Yeah.
He drilled him. And they said, Undertaker turned around and said to him, you've got to let him have the first shot. You know, all the politics aside, and that, you know, Undertaker was head honcho then, 7 years into it. You know what I mean? He told Vince, he said, "You got to take what Bret throws at you." He absolutely drilled him, and he had a black eye because he came on television the following night on Raw, and he definitely drilled him.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
We've had a debate of the greatest wrestler of all time. We have a debate show on Saturday, Stu, where, you know, Jack took who I would have took, which was Bruno Sammartino. Unbelievable legend, as you pointed out about Bret, a very great technical wrestler, and I said the Undertaker, because of his popularity and the way they market him as the dead man, never can kill him. I mean, to me that was an unbelievable promotion for this guy. You know, coming out of the casket, he's dead, and you know he's buried, and you know he's all gone, and all of a sudden he comes back again. You can't kill a dead man. So in your opinion, I mean, Ultimate Warrior I love too when I followed wrestling. In your opinion, you still think that Bret, you said Hart is the best in your mind?
In my personal opinion, you know, at the end of the day, it splits opinion. Jake Roberts, Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back now. He came out and said he didn't draw a dime when he was champion. You know, sometimes it does split opinion on the guys, but for the most part, it's all positive. And you watch those matches now, and they still hold up. Now, when he was in there with Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, in '91 at SummerSlam at Madison Square Garden, that match is still a masterclass. Now, you could put that on programming now, and it would not look dated in the slightest. They were doing stuff that they were ahead of the time. He's got a rich tapestry, Bret Hart, within the wrestling business, in my opinion.
I gotta tell you a funny thing, guys, and Mac, you don't even know this. I got married the night before WrestleMania 1, and all people asked about on my wedding video who they think was going to win the big match tomorrow at the Garden, the tag team, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, and the whole bit. You know, it was so right before WrestleMania 1. That was a big talk of my wedding, believe it or not.
Well, you know, Jack just brings up things out of nowhere, so be ready for that at any time.
I'm prepared.
It's good stuff. It's true.
Keep bringing it, Jack. I'm loving it. 1985.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
WrestleMania 1. That's what I know. It's March 31st, 1985.
There you go.
On closed circuit.
Madison Square Garden. Okay, a bit of trivia for Mac. Mac, who was one of the referees?
At where? At that match?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Jack! You know how
trivia for you now.
Yes,
Come on, a famous person, very famous.
Yeah.
Was he a wrestler?
Famous as could be.
Was he a wrestler?
I can't give you a clue. As famous as could be in the sports world.
In the sports world, I'll take a shot and say Lawrence Taylor.
Oh, come on, man.
1995, Lawrence Taylor against Bam Bam Bigelow in Philadelphia.
Good one, sorry. Yeah, but that was 10 years later. Muhammad Ali.
I know it's Muhammad. I didn't want to say anything. I knew the answer.
Right. I know you knew it. Muhammad Ali. So that was, and the timekeeper, famous Yankee manager Billy Martin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. So anyway, I tell you, don't go without any road at any time. I love them raw, Stu. So Stu, what is the difference? I mean, you got you're over there in the UK, and of course you got your UK wrestling, and you got the USA wrestling with all the different things they do. Is there any difference really in the way it's promoted or the way? Go ahead.
Can I just say I'll try and articulate this the best way I can. Literally, over in the UK, per square mile in world terms, we've got the most independent promotions globally in Britain. There's hundreds of promotions. There's some fantastic ones. Obviously, they're not running at the moment because of COVID and the restrictions. But if you're a wrestler and you're a young wrestler, once it's all back up and running, you've got so many decent places where you can go. And in European and world terms, there's some really, really good promotions. You know, coming aside from the big guns in America and the big guns in Japan, the independents are thriving. Well, the independents were thriving. There was about a good 7 or 8 years. People wanted wrestling. I know the numbers and the ratings don't show for WWE, but independent wrestling was thriving.
Who is the most famous wrestler from the UK who's ever come to the USA and has performed here?
Oh, I'd say what, I've got to go because I'm from Wales. I've got to go with Adrian Street.
Okay, but what the point I'm trying to make, you never had someone from the UK that big along the lines of a Stone Cold Steve Austin, a Hulk Hogan.
I get you. You're totally right what you're saying.
Right, right. But when you think of the sport of boxing, you have Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Lennox Lewis. So you had the biggest names amongst the heavyweights in boxing.
We've got the best. We've got the best heavyweights.
Stage, but wrestling hasn't followed.
I get you. I totally get you saying that. There's a lot of UK based guys making a living in America now. When you think, I just last night I interviewed Georgia Smith, British Bulldog's daughter, and he was the only one. Once Dynamite went, once he split from there under the haze of whatever it was with Vince, we only had the British Bulldog there. All right, more latterly WCW, we had Dave Taylor, William Regal, Steven Regal. But it was just the Bulldog.
I could see Tyson Fury becoming WWE champion.
And that splits opinion. But the guy has got it verbally. He's got it. And yeah,
he's got it. The size, the mouth, the personality. Yeah.
He recently said he'd like to come back, apparently. Right. So that would be pretty cool. And obviously his bouts, his matches over here are televised on BT Sport, and that's where WWE. That's
Can you
syndicates it.
Imagine a WrestleMania, Mike Tyson, who's been involved with the WWE, against Tyson Fury in a wrestling match, and people are going to wonder, boxing fans, whether they're going to throw punches. So the business that would do.
Well, I mean, I know boxers have gone up against wrestlers in exhibition matches before. You might see something like that with Fury. You might. I mean, that just for promotion and just for fun. I mean, Ali's done it. There's a couple other boxers that have done it in history, and it gets a lot of ratings. Let's talk about the athletes in wrestling, Stu, because they always get the rap that this is all it's not fake, but it's staged. The moves, what they're going to do. But I don't know if they get enough credit of what tremendous athletes these guys are. What are your thoughts on that?
Can I take it back a bit? Can you remember when John Stossel went backstage and he got slapped? And he played on the fact that he was injured. He had loads of money doled out to him, and David Schultz absolutely whacked him because he said it was fake. And just to think about that, but those guys are so. The amount of years they're on the road, there's no sport like it. Look at the off season with the NFL. You're on the road when everything's up and running properly. I know at the moment they're not. They're only like doing a few shows here and there. But when they're full time, it's 300 days on the road, 250 days on the road. There's no sport doing that, and they don't get enough praise. I know they call it entertainment. They're sports. They're athletes. I don't buy into the entertainment side all the time. It's a sport.
Right.
What is the difference between, let's say, gymnastics or wrestling? A wrestler flipping off the top rope, or gymnast flipping off the balance beam. They know what they're going to do beforehand, true, but they have to execute these amazing athletic feats.
Ric Flair, one of the greatest of all time, probably in the top 5 of all time across the sport. He said it's choreographed. He's gone on record when people have said it's fake. But it was different. It was different back then, pre-internet. People did believe. But I've been sat in stadiums and arenas over there, and some of the American guys still think it's real.
Yeah, well,
it's like, come on, get a grip. Like,
well, the face Mac and Stu, wrestling has changed. Years ago, we always used to know the outcome beforehand. It was pretty obvious who was going to win matches, and it drove me crazy that we'd never see an upset. Now it's a little more unpredictable, I think.
I definitely agree with that. Stu, what's your thoughts? I mean, no other sport, entertainment, whatever you want to call it, it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's there's great athletes doing great things. What do you think about not having fans there? I think this has affected wrestling probably more than any other sport.
Absolutely. Just to take it to All Elite Wrestling out there. They've obviously been running shows in Florida, in Jacksonville there, in Daly's Place next door to the football stadium. And I've got to tip my hat to Tony Khan. I know they've obviously got other business interests with the Jaguars and they own Fulham soccer team over here. But they've done it with, they've sporadically praised the fans in the stadium over the last 3 or 4 months. And then you've got talent at ringside. The talent at ringside were out there making noise months before that. When they brought the COVID testing in, they've done a great job with it. Now, I don't know if you've seen with WWE, they've made like a Thunderdome, and it's at Tropicana Field now. And there's loads of LED video boards around the stadium, and you can basically watch it live to give you that aura that there's people there, but they're still piping in sound, from a mixing desk in a van somewhere. So, yeah, they're doing the best under the circumstances.
Stu, there's something I don't know the answer to, Mac, too. You're going to laugh. I was sitting next to Chuck Wepner at the banquet for like the whole evening. And even though I talked to him about his match with Andre the Giant, was it real or not? Even though he talked to me for a while, I couldn't comprehend whether it was yes or no. I always wondered whether that match was real or not, or whether that was all prearranged. I couldn't imagine it being completely spontaneous because it wouldn't have gone over well if Chuck Wepner knocked out Andre the Giant. Then again, maybe he wasn't capable of doing it because Andre was so big. I just don't know. I mean, was that spontaneous or what? Chuck said, well, you can't fight a guy that big. That's all he basically told me.
Well, I think a lot of that is definitely choreographed, especially when you have a champion in wrestling and a champion or a champion contender in boxing. Neither one of them you really want to get hurt because of their careers. So I would imagine that, of course, it was choreographed. I can imagine in heat of battle something happens too. If somebody hits somebody and they're not expecting it, they may get a little ticked off too. So
that was at Shea Stadium, Mac, where they fought, and on the screen we saw Muhammad Ali against Antonio Inoki in Japan. And that was actually real. Inoki laid on his back all fight and was kicking Ali's legs. And afterwards, Ali had blood clots. It turned out to be very dangerous for Ali.
Yes, definitely. So, Stu, I understand that you're working over there. You got sponsors, and before we let you go, which I hope is not for another at least 5 or 10 minutes, go ahead and let us know a little bit about what's going on over there. Your sponsors, what is next for the show? I mean, give us as much information as you can to let the people know that are tuning in now and that will be tuning in.
You can see slightly there, Powered 4 TV. They're an on-demand service here in the UK. They were Turnbuckle TV. They've rebranded in the last 3 or 4 months. Richard and John do a great job. They cover US wrestling on there. They've got contracts with them guys. They've got old material, the old promotions that don't exist anymore. They've got current promotions, so many UK-based guys, podcasts as well. They've done a fantastic job. We've actually got a soccer show starting on Sunday. They've invited me to come on that. They're going to diversify into the soccer, into the football. So we're doing that 7 till 8. They're doing a fantastic job. They've been brilliant with me, and they've really helped, propel the podcast and get more eyes on the prize, if you like. So yeah, they've been great. Can't say that good.
So you're going to go ahead and you're going to be also on a soccer podcast?
It's going to be brand new, 7 o'clock here, so 2 p.m. your time, Eastern, and we're gonna do the first one. But the funny thing is, it's Man United versus Liverpool, and 2 of the guys that are on it one's Man United, one's Liverpool. So the match won't be long over, and they're going to be going at it, I reckon. And I'm just going to be like Switzerland in the middle somewhere. I follow Everton.
Matt, they take their soccer seriously.
Oh, yes, they
I was
do.
in Disney World once, okay? And then I go to the British pub. So just for kicks, the waiter comes to me and I said, let's have a toast for Manchester United. The smile leaves his face. It looked like the guy was going to attack me. I mean,
yeah. So Stu, if you got that going on, I'll have Linda contact you. We'd love to get that over there too, man. That would be great.
I'll obviously speak to John and Rich, but I'm sure they'll want to get as many eyes on it as possible. They'll be more than game to do it, man. Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't sign off on it because obviously it's their baby, but I'm sure it won't be a problem. I'm sure it'll be fine.
That sounds great. The more the merrier over there. So Stu, let me tell you, it's great having you on today because, again, I'm not a big wrestling guy anymore, but I was at one time, and you'll make me want to watch it more, which is great. And just to have somebody on the network on Northeast Streaming Sports that's over from the UK is incredible. What you can do on the internet today, and you're excited about it. I can hear it in your voice. And,
I love a lot of sports. Don't get me wrong, soccer's up there, football.
Yeah.
The wrestling, and people are very dismissive. Oh, it's had its day. You should see what the guys can do, man. Some people don't like modern wrestling, and that's fine.
Right.
Some of the stuff you see now that they do, these guys, they're like Chinese acrobats. They're incredible.
Yeah, they definitely are.
The athleticism and all that,
It's to me, again, I always thought that, as I just said before, that, it may be choreographed to a point, but man, when you're jumping off the top ropes, there's so many chances to get injured. There's so many moves that they got to do that if they weren't athletes, me and you can't do it. These guys
get hurt all the time, and it's one of the things of the profession. You're going to become a wrestler. You have to be prepared to get hurt the same way as a football player, Mike. You're an athlete.
Right. I agree 100%. Stu, again, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. We love having you. And good luck to you on the soccer, and good luck to you on your podcast. And we'll be looking for you on Northeast Streaming Sports, and hopefully that even gives you a little more viewers and a little bit more publicity over here. So love having you on. You have a great day. And when's the next big wrestling showdown coming up nationally? Do you know?
I'd tell you what we did have, and it was absolutely brilliant. Just before I go, New Japan, incredible promotion, been going since 1972. They just had Wrestle Kingdom. All the constraints with people. We're not being able to go to events. They did it with, I think, 12,000 people at the Tokyo Dome this past week. Wrestle Kingdom over 2 nights. Some of the best wrestling you'll see.
Excellent. And Justin Clapper.
Hey, Wrestling Travel. He's the ops manager for Wrestling Travel. It's Justin. He's a good friend.
That's great. That's great, man. I like I said, it's been a pleasure having you on, and it's going to be a pleasure working with you on Northeast Streaming Sports. You have a great day. Thank you for taking the time to come in, Stu. We appreciate it. You have a great day, my friend.
Cheers, fellas. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Take care, boys. Bye.
Take it easy. So there you go. Stu's Wrestling Podcast with Stewie Palmer. Did a great job.
Mac, every time I wanted to talk about the old days of wrestling, you were cutting me off. I had to
Lord.
Off my momentum there.
Yes.
Talk about Piper's Pit, some of the guests he had on, some of the things that went down. I'll save it for another time, I guess.
There's nothing to stop us from having Stu back on again. I mean, I'd love to have him. I love people that are passionate about what they do, Jack. I love people that are really into what they do. I mean, it makes it for a fun guest. He's very knowledgeable. He has a lot of things going on out there. So if you want to see him, guys, his show, his podcast, and some of the clips he does, go on over to the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page. Check it out. We also have him up on the Instagram account. We'll be sharing them to the Streaming Sports. Will be sharing them to Twitter over here. A lot of big plans for Stu. And there you go. So Stu even said, he sent you a quick message. We can talk old school time, Jack. So, Stu knows what's going on.
Well,
so, Jack, let's take our last official timeout for today. We'll be right back on the other side. We still got the trivia question for you, Jack. Don't think I'm letting you off the hook. We still got a lot of things to cover. So
again, we were right about the last trivia question.
Okay,
we'll revisit that when we come back.
That's excellent, Jack, because I love it when you prove the sites wrong. So let's get this going, guys. We'll be right back after these few messages.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Oh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I mean to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, he's gonna know.
Kids that age really listen.
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the great Jack Hirsch. And Jack, we're having a lot of fun today. I mean, I haven't had this much fun on the show in a while. I had two great guests. We had the Philly Sports Guy giving us your latest Philly sports news. We've had Stu from Stu's Sports Podcast over from the UK. He was filming us on his wrestling show. A new member to the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. He did a great job. He's very enthusiastic. It was great having him on. So far, Jack, pretty good.
And so far, I've been pretty good answering the trivia questions, even though you say that my answer's incorrect, like the last one.
Right.
Okay, last two, but let's go over the last one. Which is the official national sport of Canada?
Right.
I said hockey. You said wrong. The answer's lacrosse. But actually, I looked it up after. There are two correct answers, and hockey's one of the correct answers.
There you go.
Hockey's the official winter sport. lacrosse is the official summer sport. So, Mac, had you asked me which was the official summer sport, and if I didn't say lacrosse, I would have been wrong, but that's not how you asked it, Mac. You just said which is the official sport. So I have to be given credit for correct answer because hockey is the official winter sport.
You are correct, Jack. It is. The site was wrong. You're saying I said that, Jack. I look up these trivia questions for you to try to stump you, and that's the answer that was given, Jack. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons
I want credit for right answer.
We're going to give you a half credit, Jack. So,
half,
again,
I mean, well, okay, I could have named both official sports. I named one of them. Okay.
You could have, So, Jack.
Fills me up.
Yes, Jack. So here we go, Jack. Again, one of my favorite parts of the show. Where,
I don't know the answer.
You get asked by me, a trivia question in sports where, you have been at least partially right in both proving the site almost wrong, Jack, which is pretty upsetting to me.
In the time before Tom Flores, the only person in NFL history who won a Super Bowl as a player, assistant coach, and head coach. And you said it was only Mike Ditka.
Right. So, but you didn't say Mike Ditka, Jack. So again, you get half
I didn't
credit.
have to. Flores was the first one. You said who was the only one?
Right.
I named Tom Flores, and he was the first one. So
Right. Exactly. So there you go. So Jack has spoken, and it is true what he's saying. So
I've got momentum going. I might get this question right. Let's have it.
You possibly could. So in 1993, the first time only one performer performed at the Super Bowl. Who was that person who was the first?
Oh, come on, Mac. You're going to halftime shows at the Super Bowl now. Give me
Yes, I am. Anything that I think you could get this, Jack, if you can imagine.
I think,
back in 1993.
I mean, wait. Was that the controversial one where the woman's top kind of came down a little bit?
Yeah, that's one of them, Jack. But this was the first. That was two performers, if you remember right. Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. The first only solo performer in the Super Bowl halftime show. Think back to 1993.
I'll be honest, Mac. I just watched the game.
Yes.
Halftime, I don't watch the shows much. I'm like doing whatever.
Right.
I'm doing the dishes, maybe getting a snack.
Yeah. But this would be huge, Jack. You might have watched this one because this was the biggest.
1993. So we're talking 28 years ago. Wow.
Right.
Who was big then?
Huge album, Jack. Huge album. And in the early 90s.
I mean, oh boy. I'm going to have to give an answer. I mean, I'm just taking a shot at it. Bon Jovi.
Good try, but again, that's not a solo performer. That's a group, Jack.
Solo, well,
Bon
Jovi basically is thought of as being solo.
Yeah, but
he has support behind. I shouldn't say that. I'll give Bon Jovi.
Yes.
Solo performer.
So he would be a solo singer, Jack. I'm going to give you an example. Again, he would be a solo performer, one of the biggest names in the business ever.
I'm thinking the style of music in 1993, how society has evolved.
Right.
From they transitioned, Mac, from our era when we were young to the modern day. Maybe they got caught in the middle then.
Well, in the 90s,
I'm not going to be corny and say someone like Tom Jones. That would be, that couldn't possibly be.
Exactly. So he was huge in the late 80s. He was with a group when he was younger, Jack.
I don't know. You got me there on the music. You got me.
Michael Jackson, Jack. Former of the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
So I gave you as many hints as I could have, Jack, to get you.
Listen, that was a gettable answer because we had transitioned from the old style music we used to have like many years ago to the Michael Jackson was, real big then. I mean, really, Yeah, and that was when he was at the peak. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so Michael Jackson was the first. I bet you watched some of that, Jack, because incredible performer, incredible
I
singer.
like Michael Jackson. Yeah. I like this. Yeah, I like his music.
So let's take care of a few things to talk about, Jack. If you folks, when you're watching, if you get a chance, go over to Max Sports Insider's website, macandjacksports.com. We have a lot of information over there about different shows, our guests, public relations from the Yankees and Giants right now, because that's the only two that I could get to sign on with us to give us their updates, and they come out right away, right directly from their sports directors. And we got to also have all the shows that are on Northeast Streaming Sports over there if you'd like to take a look at them. And we have our Wall of Fame, Jack, who we just nominated, or inducted, I should say, into the Hall of Fame, Willie Mays.
Who you said, Mac, was the greatest center fielder of all time.
Right. Point blank. I would, that's one of the ones that I would be totally sure of. I mean, I would think Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time. Lou Gehrig is probably the greatest first baseman. If I had to pick a center fielder in history over anybody in the history of baseball, it would be Willie Mays, just because.
You put him ahead of Joe D, and you put him ahead of Mick when Mick was in his prime.
Yes, when Willie was in his prime and Mick was in his prime, I take Willie. And there's no, I mean, there's not saying Mickey Mantle ain't great. We know he is. We know Joe was a legend also, Joe DiMaggio. But I mean, who's better in center
But
field?
I tell you something with the analytics, though. What Bill James said when the two of them were at their best until Mantle slowed down.
Yeah.
That according to analytics strictly, that Mantle was better, and it wasn't even close. That according to Bill James.
Well, that's Bill James is entitled to his analytical opinion.
Yeah.
And I just know I've watched a lot of baseball, as you have, and sports all my life. And I've never seen anybody offensively and defensively greater than Willie Mays. So
Well,
that's
Tim McCarver said Willie Mays was the best he ever saw until Barry Bonds went on that historic tear.
Yeah.
And then someone mentioned steroids, and Tim McCarver didn't want to comment on it at that point.
Right. So over there at Mac and Jack's sports.com, you can see all this information. We also have an Instagram page, Jack. I don't know if you've been there yet, but it's also Mac and Jack Sports. You can see our Twitter at MacMan McGrath, capital M, capital G. And of course, we're on on Northeast Streaming Sports, a new network that just came out, is growing fast. And it's great, because if you want to see a bunch of shows about the Northeast, and a couple of the shows that aren't, Jack, like the wrestling show with Stu, the Big Shaw show from Louisiana, who covers a lot of college football. If you want to go to one place and just watch shows about sports, an independent podcast is a great place to go. We've got TGI Sports Scope. It's great. So all there for you to go and watch.
We have it all covered.
Yes, we do. We also have a couple great sponsors, Fanatics and BST Cars and Brakes. It's called bestbrakes.com. Check them out. They have everything in memorabilia, cards, signed jerseys, apparel for your teams. Great sites. Go over to Mac and Jack sports.com. Click on it. And with bstbrakes.com, you get $10 off just by putting in Mac Jack. Our names are saving people money as we talk right now, Jack. So that's a couple things to talk about that I talked about with the people listening right now and viewing. So let's get to one of my favorite things that we do every day. We try to get in every day, and it's this day in sports history, Jack. And this is where we talk about what happened in the past. Get your comments on there. We'll kind of discuss it a little bit. And let's start in 1962, Jack. Philadelphia's center Wilt Chamberlain scored 78 points over, get this name, the Chicago Packers. So that was actually an NBA team, not the Green Bay Packer football team, but the Chicago Packers. And he scored 78 points. Wilt Chamberlain, to me, Jack, is, I mean, you can put him up against a lot of centers. You can put him up against, of course, his nemesis, who Bill Russell, who would played him tough all the time and was, maybe definitely won more championships. You can put him up against Kareem, You can put him up against, Shaq. You can put him up against all these guys. He would still be awesome today. I don't know if he would score as many points as he did back then because, it is what it is. But, this man was a scoring machine. I was in awe of watching him when he first came out.
No, I was watching an interview that Larry Brown did the other day. Okay, I'm not sure how old the interview was, but he was talking about when Wilt Chamberlain was 43 years old. He was playing a pickup basketball game, his team against Magic Johnson's, and they ended the game with Wilt blocking Magic's shot, but Magic claimed he was fouled and started walking away. And according to Larry Brown, Wilt wanted to play another game. They played one more game, and every shot Wilt at age 43 was blocking the next game, including Magic Johnson's shots. And this is Larry Brown talking. Now, that's a reputable source.
Yes.
And he's saying he couldn't believe what he was saying, Larry Brown, the way Wilt at age 43 in the playground game was dominating. I would love to hear. I don't think Magic Johnson's ego would allow him to say, wow, Wilt was blocking each shot. But I will say this about Wilt Chamberlain. Maybe some of the records may have been a little overinflated, or maybe he couldn't do it in this modern time. But Wilt Chamberlain had one season where he only missed 13 minutes the whole season, and those were overtime minutes. So when you think of a player with that durability, you can't get that today in this day and age. If he could do it then, he could certainly do that today.
Well, there's no doubt. Can you imagine all the fouls that would be called against him right now? Just think, and there's always a big discussion of what players are better. You go back to Michael Johnson, LeBron James, Big O versus, maybe Westbrook. These players back then, the game was so much more physical. To score back then, you weren't getting cheap calls, Jack. You could hand check a guy all the way up the court. The only way they would call a flagrant foul is if the guy elbowed you in the face. It was such a physical game. Michael Jordan even had to start working out when he first came in because every time he went to the hole, he was fouled terribly and hard. So, again, maybe LeBron James with his build could withstand those fouls. But I saw him flop on a foul when he was driving to the basket just recently. And he laid on his stomach like he was just beat up. And later in the game, he was smiling. It's just something to me, the game has lost a little bit. I don't care about 160 points, Jack. I want to see a tough basketball game.
Well, I wanted to go back to the time when Jordan was fouled continuously by the bad boy Pistons, where they'd knock a guy on his behind. That's not basketball, where guys, were risking injury whenever they drive to the basket. So we disagree on that. I think Commissioner David Stern at the time, when it was getting too physical in the 1980s, in early 90s, should have stepped in a little sooner. And to his credit, before he passed away, David Stern admitted that they let a little too much go on, perhaps, that they shouldn't have. But getting back to Wilt Chamberlain, they actually changed some of the rules because of him. So he was a difference maker. But Wilt Chamberlain's great individual game didn't translate into winning, even though they did win. He did win 2 NBA championships. Wilt Chamberlain himself said, had he been on the Celtics instead of Bill Russell, he doesn't feel the Celtics would have been as successful. Because Wilt Chamberlain said his skills were too powerful for the team concept because he was so dominant. Okay, such a dominant player. Okay, and there's something to be said about that. But Jordan Wooden, the great UCLA coach, he was of the opinion the Celtics would have won the same way, Russell or Chamberlain. It wouldn't have mattered.
Well, I guess I might agree with Wilt to a point there. I think that the Celtics were an unbelievable team, with shooters and defensively. They seem to work really well together. I don't know if Wilt could have been as successful as Russell with that, but who knows? We'll never know.
Can I say something about Wilt?
Yes.
If he could have 3 games back, his legacy would be different. 3 games. The national championship game where his Kansas team lost to North Carolina in triple overtime. Had he won that game, he'd be an NCAA champion. Then there was the game, Bill Russell's last game when Wilt was with the Lakers. They lost to the Celtics. They were up 2-0 in the series. Then they were up 3-2, and they lost. And then they lost the last two, and they lost the last game at the Inglewood Forum on Wilt's home court. Had they won that game, that would have given them a third NBA title. Then a year later, okay, they lose to the New York Knicks, that Willis Reed game where he limped out. Wilt just should have taken charge of that game 7, but the whole Laker team was mesmerized by Willis Reed coming out. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And later Wilt said, I don't know about my teammates, but I was thinking that the Knicks were a team of destiny. A mentally tough player doesn't think that. Bill Russell said, I would have looked at, gotten the ball and rammed it down his throat and let him injure his other leg. That was Bill Russell was so much tougher mentally than Wilt, even though Wilt was the more talented player.
Yeah, and not enough credit is given to to Walt Frazier for that game, Jack, for that series, as a matter of fact.
Oh yeah, that game 7. We talk about Willis Reed, and Willis Reed got the MVP, which was a travesty. I shouldn't say a travesty. It really should have gone to Walt Frazier. Because I'll just make a little note. When Willis Reed got injured in Game 5 of the series, it was 2-up. Willis Reed went out with the Knicks down 16 points. The Knicks rallied and won the game. They came from a big deficit, came from behind to win without Willis. And then Willis was only good for hitting a couple of shots early Game 7. He meant a lot on an inspirational level. But Walt Frazier, 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds in that Game 7.
I definitely agree with that. In 1974, Jack, Larry Zonka wins the Super Bowl MVP in their route to the 24-7 over the Vikings. Now, when we mention great running backs, we really don't mention Larry Zonka. Larry Zonka was very old school, a big fullback. The Miami Dolphins opened pretty good holes for him too. But I know that everybody feared him as soon as he came through that line. When that hole opened and Zonka was coming through, nobody wanted to tackle that man. And some defensive linemen didn't even want to tackle him. He was a great Miami Dolphin. He was a great running back. Maybe his legacy about that fumble with the Giants has hurt him a little bit. But I'm telling you right now, in his prime, Jack, that was like a tank running through butter. You know what I mean?
And his fellow running back, the halfback, Jim Kick on those teams, they were called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Right.
That year that Zonka was Super Bowl MVP, the Dolphins repeated as Super Bowl champions. They had a 12-2 regular season record, but they were much more dominant in the playoffs than they were the year before in the regular season. The Dolphins had a better team when they repeated with a 12-2 record than they would the year they won unbeaten the year before. But people talk about the unbeaten team as the greatest of all time. Well, that unbeaten team wasn't even as good as the Dolphin team the next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, you mentioned Jim Kick. We can't forget about Mercury Morris either.
Mercury Morris made things happen. Yeah.
The trouble
dynamic back. Dynamic.
Yeah, and Kick was great out of the backfield catching. Zonka could hit you up the middle, and Mercury Morris would destroy you.
Let me tell you, they could have three-peated possibly, but they had a number of injuries in the playoffs the next year, and they nearly beat the Oakland Raiders, and that was the classic play where Kenny Stabler was being tackled, and on his way down, got rid of the ball in the end zone for a touchdown.
Unbelievable.
Possibly, and that game took so much out of the Raiders because that was the big showdown. The Raiders, the best team in the NFL, supposedly, against a defending 2-time champion Dolphins. So by the time the Raiders won that game, the following week, they had to play the Steelers to see who would go to the Super Bowl. The Steelers hadn't been to the Super Bowl yet. The Raiders couldn't get up emotionally for that follow-up game. And the Steelers beat them and went and started their run of 4 Super Bowl wins in 6 years.
No, you mentioned that throw by Kenny Stabler. I mean, he was tackled, falling down, flipped the ball. Today, Jack, that might be in the grasp, and that play would never happen. Just thinking about that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, how the rules have changed. In 1976, Marvin Hagler suffers his first loss of his career to Bobby Watts in a 10-round controversial decision. Now, he wasn't the champ at the time. I don't know if you know about Bobby Watts, Jack.
Bobby Boogaloo Watts. I wish we had brought that up when we had the Philadelphia promoter, Russell Peltz. What is with you, Mac? You come up with this fantastic research. No one else has the research that is given on this show. That is amazing research, Mac, but I just wish we had brought it up with Russell Peltz because he would have gone off on a tangent worse than I'm going off on right now.
Really?
Bobby Boogaloo Watts, Marvin Hagler reportedly was robbed in that fight against Bobby Boogaloo Watts. It was in Philadelphia. Marvin Hagler would go to Philadelphia and fight their best middleweights because that's the only place he could get work. Marvin Hagler wasn't the famous fighter that we know of today. He wasn't a champion yet. He was trying to get a name for himself. But then he fought this fighter named Willie the Worm Monroe. And like Russell Peltz was saying one time, a story, there was no, he may have said it on our show as well, there was no film footage of that fight because there was a snowstorm that night and the film crew couldn't make it to the arena. But according to all newspaper accounts, Willie the Worm Monroe legitimately beat Marvin Hagler. And after the fight, Marvin Hagler, acknowledged as much. Well, I'm trying to get to where Willie Monroe is, blah, blah, blah. I think Russell Peltz did talk about that on our show.
I'm not sure, Jack, but it was just, this Bobby, I've never really heard of Bobby Watts. I mean, we know Marvin Hagler. I know the Worm.
In the 70s, good middleweight from Philadelphia, Bobby Boogaloo Watts, 1970s, yeah.
So there you go, Jack. So Bobby Watts hands him his first defeat before he became champion.
Controversially, the reports are that Hagler really did win the fight, but Watts got the decision.
Okay, so in 1981, we have, I'm trying to see if I can read this correctly, Mike Bossy. It's his 15th career hat trick.
Mike Bossy, Islander, great Islander player,
with 4 goals. So, I mean, to get a hat trick, and not just because you got, the assist and you got 4 goals. I know you followed hockey back then, Jack, to a point anyway. So what was Mike Bossy the best player on the Islanders, or was he one of a great team?
The Islanders were spread out. I mean, during their run of 4 Stanley Cups in a row that was ended by the Edmonton Oilers, who beat them in the finals. I mean, you talk about spreading the wealth. I mean, there were so many good players. If I had to say one single player was the best, acknowledged as the best, if you had to pick one, I guess it would be Brian Trottier.
Okay.
He was a mini Wayne Gretzky in a way, a Wayne Gretzky-like, not quite as good, but you can make a case at his best. He could get on the same buses, Wayne Gretzky would be sitting in the suite all the way up front, but Brian Trottier would be maybe a couple, seats back. He was that good, he really was. And, with the Islanders goalies, you think of them, Billy Smith, Chico Ruiz. It's like, and Mike Bossy, great center on that team, a goal scorer. And they just had, those Islander teams, we really underappreciated when we look back on New York sports teams' history, like what they accomplished. And they had a great coach in, Al Arbour.
Very true, very true. So in 1982, Hank Aaron and Frank Robinson are both elected to the Hall of Fame. We talk about great baseball players. I came across a picture. Linda wrote an article about Hank Aaron where he came over and he started Negro Leagues. He came through, became the home run king, Jack, under threats of violence and and death threats because, of course, he was breaking Babe Ruth's record at the time. And, I remember the video of him running around the bases and people coming out and trying to maybe congratulate him. But I think he was scared, who was coming out on the field. But, I mean, how can you not appreciate not only Hank Aaron, but, what Frank Robinson did as a player and manager? Two great pros, Jack.
Well, Frank Robinson made history. It's around the last name Robinson, Jackie Robinson, the first African-American big league player, and Frank Robinson, the first African-American big league manager.
Right.
Okay, managing, the Cleveland Indians. And Frank Robinson, now we think of him more as a player than we do as a pioneer. He was a great player for the Cincinnati Reds, who then thought he was old at the age of 30. So they traded him to the Baltimore Orioles for a decent pitcher, Milt Pappas, but not a player of Robinson's caliber. And Robinson proceeded in the 1966 season, his first with the Orioles, to show him exactly how old he was by winning the Triple Crown.
Right.
And the Orioles won the World Series that year, sweeping the Dodgers in 4 games.
Right, definitely. And again, Hank Aaron, to me, was an incredible ball player. I don't know if he played more games than Babe Ruth or whatever the case may be. Maybe Ruth was better batting average, and I'm not sure. I didn't look up their RBI totals put together. But listen, Hammer and Hank was incredible and was an
incredible man.
Yes,
and Hank Aaron as well.
I agree 100%. In 1994, Jack, Tanya Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckhart, and Derek Smith, I guess, was involved in too, are arrested and charged with the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, the other skater that was trying to make the Olympic.
Talk about clowns. Those guys, complete clowns. They check into the hotel. They leave their Visa card. They leave a trail where they could get caught. And Tanya Harding claiming she didn't know about it. So maybe Tanya Harding didn't know about it beforehand, what they were going to do. I don't know. But she certainly knew after it happened, but was willing to take credit and compete. And had she won a medal, she would have held the medal up proudly, even though Nancy Kerrigan would have been taken out. The whole thing was just sickening. Fortunately, Nancy Kerrigan got to compete. And she competed excellently, winning a silver medal, which a lot of people thought should have been gold, wanted to see gold medal. But Nancy Kerrigan hasn't exactly established herself as a glamour girl afterwards, as far as public image goes. Okay, she might be a very nice person. I don't know. I'm not passing judgment on her. But it didn't take off her image the way, let's say, a Chrissy Everett's would.
Right. Or Harding, not Harding, Dorothy Hamill.
Dorothy Hamill and all of them, Michelle Kwan.
Right.
And, whatever the reason is.
I think about that. I put that right up there with the tennis attack, Jack, with the knife wheel. Of course, she could have died with a knife, but to actually go out there and try to break somebody's knee is incredible. I don't know where the thoughts of these people come up. And especially being associated with Harding. I think that she should have been banned from the Olympics that year.
Let me tell you, she has that stigma, Tanya Harding, the rest of her life. Let's face it. You go into a restaurant or whatever, check into a hotel, they see your name Tanya Harding. They say, oh, aren't you the? Well, whoever meets her strange and someone says, there's Tanya Harding.
Right.
She's labeled in a certain way. She's got to carry that around the rest of her life. So,
she wasn't pretty good. And the shame is she was a pretty good skater too, Jack. She wasn't a scrub. She was in there competing in the national championships. But when you go that far, I don't know. So let's get into the birthdays as we come to the end of the show, Jack. And I like to put in birthdays of people from local teams that may not be as big as the national birthdays, because me and you grew up, as a lot of people did that are watching and that follow their teams. We know these players, we watched them, we loved them, and the national media really doesn't bring them up because they weren't maybe as popular. So let's start with Ken Hall, the center of the Buffalo Bills, was born in 1961, Jack. In 1972, running back Bam Morris, you might remember him, was born running back for the Steelers. Good running back too. Sergey Breland, the New Jersey Devils center, was born in 1973. You shake your head like you know who he is, Jack.
I'm shaking my head trying to get the cobwebs out, trying to remember things about these guys so I could tell a story. I go down, but sometimes something doesn't come up with me. Yeah. So I'm quiet, then we go on to the next guy.
Exactly. So really that's it for the three locals, Jack. And of course, we're coming to the end of the show anyway. We got a few seconds left. So I want to, thank all the guests that came into. I want to thank everybody.
The tomorrow show, very quickly.
I definitely will. Tomorrow, folks, we have on the great Iceman John Scully, our boxing expert that comes in every week. We also have Carter B covering hockey. Of course, a lot of hockey games are going to be played. Today, a big hockey game. Tomorrow, a lot of hockey games. And we'll do our little inside look at the New York Rangers. And then we got the Big Shaw Sports Podcast. Samuel from the show will be on talking to us about his show down in Louisiana, where he covers college and professional sports. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming over and checking us out and watching us and staying with us. We appreciate it all the time. Jack, have a great day. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Take care.
Have a good one.